Butterflies fill my spine, I feel myself getting hot again. Nerves rushing through my brain, yeah, they can't hear fiber from the trees. You're standing by his side, red drops burning down your face. Getting real close now, baby. Holy fuck, I feel it with you. I lose self-control. Now I found that you're not one to hear me now. You got me on my knees begging for your lady. And like a fool to stand around and let you blame me. And I'm riding in the sky to the heavens like an
Hi, welcome to The Ring and All Other Sports. My name is Leo Connors. I'm your host, and tonight I got a very special guest from the world of professional wrestling. Big surprise! Paul Andrew, also known as Paulywood.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Leo.
How are you?
We're doing good. I'm a little cold with the weather, but
Right.
I stay snug in my nice custom Dirt City jacket.
I love the jacket.
Yes,
Dirt
sir.
City Murder
We
Crew.
represent.
All right, let's get right into it. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in what's called New Hampshire, which the state that you're filming in, but mostly I grew up in a city called Manchester. It's kind of rural meets city. It's not quite Brooklyn, but it's not quite Beverly Hills. You know, there's a lot of nice areas. Depends where you walk, but you got to walk the right time of day because there's a lot of dirty areas too.
Yeah, there is.
But something that I always saw growing up was kind of like shared society, and was the idea. I was in pool halls real young with my dad and my uncles. They would, make numbers with their friends or shoot some pool, and a buck here, a buck there. I was always watching shared society. The idea like this person hang with this person, that person hang with that person. We go to the same grocery store. We can go to the same. I was very into the idea of communalism very early on. So the idea of like, oh, I'm in a city never really took to me. I remember we have the John F. Kennedy Center is our arena. I call it an arena.
WWF used to go there all the time.
Yes, sir. I remember hearing my dad and my father tell me about how he would go to a show in the 80s and he seen Andre the Giant, and he got the opportunity to walk up and shake his hand. Now, my father at the time was probably only 30.
Right.
And he said when he shook Andre the Giant's hand, it was as if I put my finger in his hand.
I believe it.
Because that's what he felt like.
Yeah.
And, I've always looked at a city like it's in me. When I be coming out to the ring and I hear people singing our Dirt City theme, the word city is in there. I feel very much from that kind of atmosphere of Manchester, even though I talk about Fall River or with other talent, I've talked about other places. Yeah, so Manchester, New Hampshire is where I came out from.
Excellent. When did you first see pro wrestling, Paul?
The first time I remember really being like was about 1991. I was at an uncle of mine's house and they watched it in the background, and my cousin, who was only about a year younger than me, he had a wrestling buddy. He had the $1 Million Man wrestling buddy.
Oh, I remember that one.
And I remember being like, what's that? And I couldn't have been just about five years old in 91. And he goes, this is the $1 Million Man. And ha, 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 ha. And we couldn't do the laugh yet. And I was like, what was that? And my uncle goes, no, it goes like this. And he did the laugh really good. And we were watching it. It must have been the Saturday night events, but the first one that really pops in my head was 605 Saturday.
Yeah.
That's the one that will always right in my head will be, well, for me, because I'm a little bit younger, was WCW's
okay.
Saturday night 605 with that blue and yellow I guess they called it high tech at the time logo.
Yep.
With like it had almost a target, and it was that ring that they would spin in the middle of it would spin, I think. And I remember 605 for so many years. But after 605 was 1993, casket match.
Yeah.
Remember thinking that was like, wow, can they even do this kind of match?
Right.
Is this it? You're dead at the end?
Now, was that Taker versus Mankind?
No, it was Taker versus Yoko.
Oh, okay.
The
Yeah,
next one,
Right.
it was like either 94, because they did a rematch, the same thing. They ran it back with
Right.
a casket match, and this time Undertaker went over.
Nice.
And those were the kind of matches where it was like, I was just young enough, but just old enough to be like interested,
Yeah.
but blown away still. Like, I remember looking at Marty Jannetty and Shawn Michaels in those outfits like
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Rockers.
Right.
I was just too young to really know what they were doing, but by the time he was coming out, oh, Shawn.
Yeah.
I was
Sexy boy.
watching. Oh, yeah.
Right.
Like, I would see him come out with Sherry. I would only be like 7 years old, but I'd say, wow, that girl's cute. and she liked him. And all right, if he just comes out and does this and,
Oh, yeah.
and chicks like that, I like girls. I'm gonna try it. I remember going on the monkey bar or whatever and trying to do like a shimmy and realizing,
You can't
I'm
do
not
it as
doing
good
the
as-
shimmy because I'm stuck now. But the girls thought I was still a little cute.
There you
One of
go.
them said, "Hey," so it almost worked. It almost worked.
That's awesome. All right. So, who were some of your favorites right away? Shawn Michaels
Shawn,
and
of
mine?
course.
Yeah,
Shawn,
Shawn.
Shawn was big, right? The first one that really grabbed my attention when I was young.
Right.
I think it was Jake the Snake.
Yeah.
I mean, it was hard without, like, even
Yeah.
without the snake, it was just the look. It was like, he kind of skinny, but he's still big.
Right.
And I remember
The way he talked, too. You know what I
that's
mean?
what drew me as I got older. I started watching the things that came out of these people's expressions.
Right.
Not just the words they would say. It's how they put those words together.
Right.
It was what drew me to say, oh, wow, that was interesting. More than just like hey, I came from the inner coils of your mind and dripped an egg and boiled it. Like, or whatever.
Yeah.
That would have been. No, it was he would just look the camera through its own soul and tell you you're about to boil in your own sins of avarice or whatever. It was like, whoa.
Right.
That was cool. I don't even know what he said, but that was cool.
Yeah, that's what it was like for me when I was a little kid. I didn't understand half these things people were saying. I'm a lot older than you, too.
Sure.
All right. So your family was into it, like you said. They watched it a little bit.
Oh,
What
yeah.
about any friends in school?
I remember specifically in 1997 in November, I got asked to go home from school early. It was me and 3 of my friends because we decided to run a tag team match we saw on Raw back at the Monkey Bars.
Yeah.
And it was like a New Age Outlaw match that they ran with somebody. I don't know, maybe like the biker group at the time or the
DOA or something.
like that. I just remember, I'm Billy Gunn and you guys can be whoever you want to be. And I'm going to rocker dropper you at the end of the match because that's how he won the other night. And we thought, whatever it was, if I could just repeat 2 minutes of the thing we saw 2 nights ago on Monday night, and it's Wednesday at the school, we'll be all right. Because our whole goal was by Friday, we need to go down the hill to the baseball field and really show the 25 to 30 older kids what we can do.
So you didn't get in trouble at school for having a match?
We tried practicing it right there. Immediately got told to bring it inside. We didn't like that, so when we got inside, we snuck back out, ran it again. We all got written up, and we had to leave for the day.
Wow.
But we would try stuff like that.
Yeah, I hear you. That's cool. All right. When did you go to your first show? Do you remember your first show?
I do and I don't, because it's a mix-up of a lot of random house shows. Like, I remember going to a random house show in Lowell when I was like 8.
At the auditorium, right?
I don't know. That's the thing. I want to say it's the auditorium because it wasn't the Saugus Center.
No, it definitely would have been. Back then, when you were 8 years old, it definitely was
it
the
was
Lowell
like
Memorial Auditorium.
94.
Yeah.
But then I seen a WCW thing also in Lowell in like 98. And it was a Thunder taping.
Right.
Real small again. But then I remember as a real kid in like 97, my uncle taking me to Philadelphia and being like, hey, they got a really bad wrestling show if you want to go see it. It's hotter than hell and the food's expensive. And I'm like, it's not ECW, is it? Because I heard of ECW, we were young in Manchester. We had Manchester Public Television would run a show by, it was called Big Top Wrestling. And this guy, I wish I knew his last name, but his name was Buddy. And he ran the show.
Right.
And he would play old ECW, like half an hour of ECW in like 97 and 8. And
Right.
I remember seeing that and going to Philly and being like, that would be amazing. Because I had some family that lived in Reading and some family that lived on the outskirts of different parts of Pennsylvania. And going to see my Uncle Wayne and his kids, and he's like, we can go see this bad wrestling show I know about. It's hotter than hell and the food's expensive. I'm like, okay. And he brings me to the middle of this trap house in Philadelphia, and it was an ECW show, and I was like, but I'm so young that it was like scary.
No, I hear. Yeah. It was
Because people,
they were crazy. Those
every
fans were
3 feet,
crazy.
somebody swearing.
Yeah.
There, I saw my 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th, and 20th booby in that show.
I believe it.
It was a wild night. And I remember my uncle even telling me, like, hey, when we go home, don't tell your mom you saw that guy get his head split open, or don't tell him you saw that guy just blast a fireball out his hand, or don't tell him. And I'm like, I'm not telling her anything, dude. I remember she goes, who won? And I'm like, all of them. I don't know. I forget. Like,
You
I
were
was
just excited.
I was stuck on stupid because I knew if I answered the wrong question, we didn't have a lot of internet then. We had AOL on a disc you had to load up. So it's not like she could be like, well, who ran that match? No, it was just, we had to be sly. And there was those, remember the first WrestleMania? I got to go to WrestleMania 10 at like just before I was 8 years old with them. My uncles used to work in the satellite business and do a lot of back and forth through New York. And that was like a birthday present.
That's cool.
Yeah, I got to go to that. And I feel like I saw one of the first wrestling shows when it became Fleet Center. Because I saw WrestleMania 14.
Right.
And I feel like with maybe a couple Raws that I don't remember, but that I feel like was the first significantly big wrestling show after it, rest in peace to the Boston's, the Garden.
Right, which was a phenomenal building. I actually catered a couple of shows at the ECW arena. It was the building is like iconic.
I
for
wish
wrestling.
I had a
guess
better
it
memory
looks
because I
totally-
was so young.
Right. I guess they've done it over the.
Oh,
It
it's
looks
completely
really
renoed.
beautiful
Yeah.
in there now.
Which it should be to a building
Right.
with that kind of accolades.
Right. Exactly. No doubt. All right. When did you know that pro wrestling was something you wanted to do, be a part
2002.
of? 2002.
2002. I was like 16.
Yeah.
I met some of my friends in high school, and they did a wrestling show. It was WAW, and it was only like 4 years old at the time. And my friends that I knew were like, hey, we're at this boxing gym we rent,
Right.
and we film it, and then we give the tape to the MCTV. I was like, that's it. That's a wrap. All I needed to know is you guys film it and it's on TV and I'm going to get seen on TV. That's all I needed to know.
There you go.
And I knew I was athletic enough and I was just like coordinated enough to like, if you tell me something, I can do it.
Right.
If you don't make it sound like an order, I can really do it. Because I just didn't like being told stuff was the only big stoppage to any sport I did. It was like, what'd you tell me? Oh, you can't coach me. So we went, they tried me out.
Yep.
Which the tryout was really just the Jersey Devil, Billy Vox, and two of their other people who were seasoned at the time.
Right.
Basically running me and another person, Vincent Zarello, who was known as Captain Vince Zarello for a long time. It was him and me going through just the gauntlet of, nope, you felt like crud. Nope, that's got to look better. Don't flip on your head, flip on your back. No, land over here, not on your bum, land on your back. Don't land on that part of your back. You got to fling your hands out,
Yeah.
slamp them. Don't smash them, slap them.
Watch your head, check the chin.
So much of the,
Oh, yeah.
and about after 2.5 hours, they said, all right, come back this time next week and we'll let you guys have a match. I said, cool, I'm on.
So that answered the next one. So Billy Vox was one of the guys that helped train.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And Billy's done some hardcore matches.
Yes, sir. Later in his career,
Yeah.
he definitely became more of an artisan of the more violent arts.
Yes, absolutely.
My proper training came in 2004.
Okay.
I remember WAW in its gestation years they rented time from a spot in Manchester known as the Top Rope Wrestling Academy.
Okay.
Was started by Steve Bradley, who was a pivotal person in many up-and-coming talent in the late 90s and early 2000s, along with Kurt Angle.
I was just going to say, obviously,
Kurt Angle, Victoria,
Yeah.
And many people on the independent scene. So I walked into them knowing of their accreditations. I walked in one day, I met Steve Bradley. He goes, you're real small, man. Because I was real thin. I hadn't really, in 2004 alone, when I was 18, I grew at least 9 inches.
Wow.
It was very hard on me, bodily. But in that time, I went to meet him, and then I met him again about 4 months later, and he goes, ooh, grown a little bit, you can put on a little bit, okay, well,
nice.
We're going to start you small, and I only worked with them for about 8 sessions, but from those sessions, I felt, okay, I can go and start something. I knew enough of the guys at WAW where they were starting to make their own name. They were starting to get outside recognition from small independents. Names I couldn't even remember right now.
No, but guys were starting to get booked at other companies.
Yeah, definitely.
Right.
And there was the notice, once it was into like 2004, 2005 came.
Yeah.
2005 became a pivotal year because we decided we're going to be an alternative. Like, a lot of people for many years knocked us down like, nah, y'all are Bush League. Y'all are even lower than that.
I did too. I did until I got to know a lot of you guys. And now I'm glad I've had you all on the show.
And I thank you for saying that out loud, Leo, because you're far from a first and you won't be a last.
Right.
Because many people were in a position back then where they felt threatened by us because we were people that were on a lower level who didn't deserve much of this.
Right.
We were training ourselves, which is very, very commonly looked at as taboo. No, you can't train yourself in professional wrestling and come and be amongst your now peers. So that was always looked at as we don't. But it was once we got opportunities from people like Brian Reese, alongside CPW, we were allowed to almost be the faces of their side promotion was known as No Limit Pro, NLP. We basically, we were like their farm talent for a lot. If you do good on here, we'll get you on the CPW.
Nice.
So that was always the look. But there was a lot of politics that we weren't akin to yet. That a lot of people were not going to teach us. And also others just trying to tell us like, hey, don't play that political game. Let's just do our own thing over here. We don't need to. Where there were people inside that built us that tried saying, hey, we can make our own stand and we can do our own thing and we don't need help. We should have been, I was one of the few, very, very few that looked at it like, hey, I think we can mix and mingle a little here and there. I think we can kind of put over their talent and still get over as our talent on their shows. But by the time it came, we wanted to start making our own stance in those companies. It just started descending, and we always got a bad eye from that. Like, they're troublemakers. They're people that want to play their own game. They want to do their own thing. So we always had to wear kind of a scarlet letter. It's like instead of like adultery, we had to wear this big W for, wrestlers.
You brought up Brian Reese.
Yeah.
Now, Collision Pro Wrestling, you had said too. Now, you probably don't know this, but I was the ring announcer for his first 3 shows.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I was, yep, for Brian
Well, then
Reese.
we've definitely seen each other before, Leo.
Nice,
Or
nice.
at least been in a building, because what I feel like a second home away from home for me was maybe a third home away from home was Somerville.
Okay,
Was
yeah, the Good Time Emporium. Yeah. I did one show there.
Huge memories. I remember when Smokey Cheech and Cloudy
Yeah.
came up, and I'm just practicing in the ring with somebody doing something. He goes,
I definitely rang in it.
Yeah.
Wasn't it Azrael versus Eddie Edwards, too?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Absolute truth that night.
That was the
Yeah.
last show I did for
yes,
him.
sir. I remember just doing some mock-up in the ring with somebody helping him, and I did this thing on the ring. I did like a little backflip with the help on the rope, but the way I did it closer to the corner, and I would land in the corner and then flip back out.
Okay.
So I did like the back
And
to
then a roll,
forward.
yeah.
And I remember Cheech and Cloudy just doing oh, you're losing that tonight. That's about to be ours. And I'm like,
that doesn't surprise
don't do
me.
that to me. It's the only thing. And I don't know if they ever did it or not, but it was that, even the small recognition of like, oh man, those guys are that right now. And they told me that thing I did looked cool. Oh man, that was awesome. I remember guys like Pizzazz going over their little shadow routine just to like go in there and not remember the routine and be like, we're just going with something else, kid.
yeah.
Okay, well now we're going with something else, man.
All right, well, the last question of the get to know you interview. Tell us about your first match or your first interaction in wrestling.
I'll tell you about my first, not my first match.
Okay.
So much as my first interactions with the world of professional wrestling was. I was very blessed because, like I said, I started with Steve Bradley. Those 8 times I got to work under his tutelage, I was training primarily with Alex Arian, the Golden Greek.
Yeah.
And
best to ever come out of New England, in my opinion.
thank you. I have said that for so many years. I think he is, without question, a golden top 10 in New England history.
No doubt.
I think Alex Arian, it was something where he just never was the biggest guy there.
Right.
He could be the biggest talent here. He just never was the biggest guy.
He had the size, not
Always
the
had
height.
it, the height.
Not
that
the
was
height.
it. And in this kind of business, there was a certain time frame, and when he came out was it, where if you're tall, you might be all.
Right.
I remember learning under him, learning under Steve, and especially someone who really, and he'll probably never remember me, but Brandon Locke.
The real deal.
Yes, sir.
He was here a
Brandon
while
Locke,
ago. Great
yes,
guest.
a phenomenal guest out here, because he's someone that has a very truthful spirit. He's not what I would call shy, but he's not engaging
Right. No, I know
until
what you mean.
you get him in that thing, and
Right.
then he's kind of and that I remember as a 16, 17-year-old, turning 18, trying to get my foot into the business and training, he would just show me little, even microbes of a fragment of a statement. Right. Hey, your foot's over there. Hey, don't do that with your hand. We don't swing that way. You get up this way. Hey, how many times did I tell you you got to ball your hand to get up? They're going to step on your fingers. It was just little tiny things like that went so much further than him jumping in the ring, show me, no, kid, you got to do. No, it was him and Alex were very much like, you're natural, you're just not all there yet. Right. We'll show you little things. Yeah. And then through the interpretation of it over and over, the repetition built what I thought was good enough. And I do look back and wish I gave it a little more, but we were broke ass. I was just getting my first job at a bike shop, not doing well.
Right.
And making like $250 or $300 a week, thinking, all right, 100 of that's for rent. And the rest of this is wrestling school. So
I'll find a way to eat.
I will find a way to make another tilapia with rice.
There you go. That's awesome.
I remember those. I remember the early gestation times, because learning in this little tiny, I promise you, their building was as big as your studio, exactly
Really?
as
Yes,
big
I'd
as
never been in
it was
that.
just a small little factory in a little strip of factory outlets. Like if you ever got to go to the House of Carmine.
Wow.
Only maybe that much bigger.
No kidding.
Yes, it was
That's
very
wild.
But it was that atmosphere that I was so used to, because I was used to a mill city like Manchester.
Right,
I was
right.
used to confinement tight. So once I started being able to have the opportunity to do shows for other venues, other federations down the line, even 20 people in a circle was better than immediately a wall on me.
Right.
It always, anytime I got to like, oh man, I got 30 people. That's 10 more than last time.
Yeah.
Ooh, now we got 50 people. And it's always got to be in your head. I made that. I did that. Yeah,
Right.
man. I might be down here on the bill, but I'm up here in their head. Like,
You got to
come on.
think like that.
If
You really
don't,
do.
What are you doing out here?
I agree.
I always
agree.
told a lot of people in WAW, I told a lot of people, and in other companies, CPW, NLP, I said, I never want to be your big boy champion. I wouldn't mind giving them a run, though. Because in my head, if I can hang with them, I can bang with them later. I can be able to, if I ain't going to hold the title, I'll make sure they stay holding their title.
There you
You
go.
know,
There
that
you
was
go.
more important than me
Right.
to being a champion. Was somebody that kept the champion on their toes was really the thing that made me feel like, ooh, I'm going to get a job next week because, not a job like jobbing out, but ooh, I'll have another match next week because
Right.
they saw me do good this time. And if I do good next time,
Right.
I'm going to do good next time.
There you go. That's a good way to look at it for sure. And it's great to see Brandon Law coming back to wrestling.
Definitely.
He's killing it right now.
Yes, sir.
Working for
Yeah.
Rebel Spirit and working for WFA.
WFA on a big comeback.
Who
Yep.
has the big comeback,
Yep.
right? And now they're in charge of the WWEID program.
Yes, sir. Good names
They're
coming
putting
out
on
of there
shows
right now.
with all the WWEID
And
guys.
I think it's great cross promotion because we are an area that has always had a particular kind of talent.
Yep.
The New England scene breeds a certain kind of superstar. It breeds that blue collar will always fight for the right to be here kind of person. You know, you see
Yep.
that in a person like Gal Barkey.
Yep.
You see that in Brad Baylor. And
Absolutely. Ricky Smokes.
I apologize if I mess any of these names up.
Nope,
but
you
yeah,
haven't.
Ricky Smokes. You know, you see talent like this
Yeah.
only once so often.
Right.
And now we have a slew of them that now
So
get
much
to go
talent.
right up to I'll just say they've ascended to the upper echelon.
Absolutely.
You know, for many talent, they don't even get a chance to open in Peabody, Mass on March 1st for at a show like Proving Ground.
Proving Ground,
Small
yeah.
plug.
At the Black Box
At the
in
Black
Peabody.
Box, baby. Yep,
There you
small
go,
plug,
Todd.
y'all.
I love
but
Todd.
yeah, some people, they might not even be as good enough to open at a show like that. Other people, they are good enough, and they do
Right.
things like the Proving Ground, like things like Renegade Wrestling Association Alliance.
Yep.
They go to places.
T-Phoenix, right?
T Phoenix,
Yeah.
yes, sir.
Yep, yep.
Big T Phoenix. Don't get them in black pants. You're already in trouble. But no, it's starting on the littles and making it to become bigs that it's an honor to be around those kind of talent.
Right.
Even if I've never worked with those kind of talent, knowing that they are representing New England when they step to that bigger echelon is something that I hope stays in them for a long time, because I've always looked at talent on two different ways. You're either going to make it
Yep.
or you've already made it.
Right.
And if you've already made it, it's a lot harder to keep making it.
Right.
If you're gonna make it, there's always that chance in someone's eyes, you've never hit your peak. You've never hit your full stride. There's always more running to do. What I see in these younger talents right now is nothing but sky's the limit, as they say.
No doubt.
If you can only go up, then just keep going up. I think, especially something like WWE,
Yep.
to keep it
Yeah.
close New England like that. I know they always like to think they're a tri-state. You know, I'll give them that. They're a tri-state organization, but
Yeah.
they're New England at heart.
There's no doubt.
It's they before the mass
Right.
territorial outage of the 80s into the 90s. We were what they had.
Well, you look at all the guys that are from New England that are in the WWE. You know what I mean? The Kofis, the Ivars. You know. Then you can even go back, even in AEW, Mercedes Moné, who I'm not a huge fan of anymore. You know what I
sure.
mean? It's hard to say. I liked her when she was in WWE. Sasha
understand.
Banks, I really did.
I
I
know.
thought she had a good gimmick and all that. I think
think
a lot of it's
she's-
gone to her head.
She's too up here when
Yeah.
you can be an icon of the sport being right here.
Exactly.
But you want to be here.
Right.
Okay, do your thing then.
Yeah.
I understand. I have that with a lot of talent, Leo. I
Yeah.
see a lot of people where I'm like, people come up to me like, why are you always dogging on this? I don't respect them. I don't think they earned what they have right now. There's a lot of talent that you get by because of the surroundings
Right.
or the people you surround yourself with.
Yeah.
You can either get by because you're talented or you get by. A lot of people get it by on nepotism. I got by because a lot of people like, hey, you're so-and-so's uncle, or you're so-and-so's nephew. Yeah, I'd rather you not remember me for that though.
Right,
You know,
right.
It would always be something like, oh, hey, let me give you a shot over here. Well, why am I earning that shot?
Yeah.
Right now, I see a wave of talent that are getting by on their true talent.
Yeah.
There was a small amount of time, I'd say maybe about 10 years ago, where there was just a surge of, I'll just call it meme wrestlers.
Okay.
They were immediate gimmick, in and out under a year or so.
Yeah.
2 years or so.
A lot of people are in and out of the wrestling business. You
But
know that.
we got to look at it on a more grander scale. From like 2015 to about 2020, there was an inordinate wave of just hack gimmicks that it's like, why'd they even throw you the bar of soap to get clean with? You know, what in the world were we thinking on that? Now I look at, I don't want to overestimate their importance, but something like AEW really shaped the game up.
It helped. It helped definitely. It helped WWE too because competition.
It
you have
knocked
to
their
have
chin
it.
down a little.
Yeah.
It knocked them going from this to, I wonder if they're worth a time.
And Triple H knows what he's doing.
Of course.
You know,
I
he's
think-
seen all the mistakes Vince made, and he's not making those mistakes.
But let's also say, and I'm not here to glaze
Yeah.
Vince McMahon. It's not my job. It ain't my guy. He saw all the success Vince had.
Oh,
too.
absolutely. Yes,
And
of
then
course he did.
micromanaged it
Yeah.
into, okay,
Yeah.
let's get rid of all that over there.
Yeah.
Let's do this up here. What did Paul Heyman say?
Right.
I'm going to accentuate the positives.
Hide the negatives.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. All right, listen, if we don't get into the fan questions, people are going to be mad at us. So let's get into the fan questions.
Bless.
The first question is from a good friend of the show and yours, Dennis Patrick Conway.
Yep, of course.
How well does Paulie think Fresh Money would do on the Indies?
Oh, man.
Who's Fresh Money? That's what Dennis, is it?
So Fresh Money was a team with me and Big Money Puma.
Okay.
Big Money Puma as Walter LaPuma. He was on an independent scene for a long time. He was in another Hall of Fame group like Big Top Players with
Okay.
Chris Shady. And me and Walter LaPuma, we were in a team called Fresh Money because I was PC Fresh.
Yeah.
And he was Big Money Puma. Put it together, we were
Yeah.
Fresh Money. In 2011, we got put together as a team in a team tournament. We almost won that team tournament. And they were so impressed by us.
Yeah.
They were like, hey, we're going to knock you guys as a regular team. Keep it going. Keep running
Nice.
it. And we became the number one face team in 2011 for that organization. And then we also got chances to do other shows in other places. We didn't take them on the merit of just we need to build our brand where we were first.
Right.
One of my biggest and most proudest moments of all time was in 9/10/11, which would be September 10th in 2011. We had a show in Newton, Massachusetts.
Yep.
At the time, WAW was more of a home installated there. Every Saturday,
Yep.
52 weeks for almost 15 years at that point.
Wow.
We ran a show in Manchester, New Hampshire.
No kidding.
And for almost 10 years at that point
Right.
was at Murphy's Boxing Gym. And every Saturday or Tuesday or however it flipped, well, one time we decided to go to Newton, Massachusetts for a show.
Yeah.
And that was like oh man, we're finally making it. We're finally going out.
Right.
Well, the second time we ever did that, we did a show called Unequaled. Troy Garbo, who was our champion, wrestled Todd Sopel
Yeah.
to a near
Great friend of this show.
Enough said. Regardless of that,
Yeah.
wrestled to near 20 minutes to huge fan ovation. And that same night, my man Walter LaPuma and I, Big Money Puma, got to wrestle for the WAW team championships.
Right.
We won that night.
Nice.
We were the first people in WAW history to win a title out of town and get to bring it back home to Manchester and really say, hey,
Yeah.
we did that away from here.
Right.
And now we're here now. Like, to me, it just felt like something was, a lot of people had won belts in this company. And even if it's like a trash league to some people,
Right.
to us it was important. To us, that was our
Right.
Manchester Square Garden,
Yeah.
you know? And it always felt like, wow, like we're leaving our garden to go to a new garden. That
Right.
now it's like, that's our home away from home. And to be able to win those belts with someone who is, I went to high school with this man.
Yeah.
This man was at my wedding not months back,
Nice.
standing near me as one. And not to go too far off a tangent, my wedding was 150 people. 1/3 of those were wrestling people from the area.
That's wild. And I know I said something about Todd Sopel, but I will say this about Todd Sopel. He's a pretty good worker and he's a great talker.
Yeah.
That's enough
it.
talk about
That's
that.
all.
All right. Kenny
Ken Rock?
Ken Rock.
Ken Rock. Lynn, baby, Lynn.
Who or where did you get inspiration to do music, which we are definitely going to hit up on soon?
So my inspiration from music, I'm an old hip hop head. I grew up in Manchester, New Hampshire, but a little before that was like New Boston, which was really rural.
Okay.
And that was until I was about 10 or 12. And then, but I was really into the hip hop scene very, very early. I remember watching Yo MTV Raps.
Yeah.
That was like, bang, they had it. Every day after school, I would be able to come home. I was just smart enough where I could program a VCR.
Yeah.
And I would program 3 things. It was going to be Power Rangers, and then an hour later it was Yo MTV Raps, or however it worked. And then an hour after that, it started like they had some of the old 1980s cartoons would play on like channel 18 or 17 for us.
Right.
And I would play, like, they would loop. If it was Tuesday, it was the Transformers. If it was Wednesday, it was G.I. Joe's. If it was Thursday, it was something like Care Bears or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, and I would always just do little things. So I would always have these little mixed videotapes at home of either like wrestling, G.I. Joe's, and something else. One time, my auntie, it was her wedding tape, and my cousin pulled it off the shelf, and we used that, and she got hella mad. Very, very mad. But yeah, it was like an old school hip hop head ever since. And around 2002, a friend of mine was like, he was doing music, and I'm like, man, you do this in your closet? He's like, yeah, I got the whole studio in my closet. And to me, that was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. And I've been in professional studios. My biological dad, Paul Sr., he could play 17 instruments, they told me. All his friends, when he was in the pool leagues, would be like, hey, Paul, come on. And he would just go over and start playing a saxophone.
That's cool.
Or he would just start playing the drums in the corner.
That's
just
wild.
ripping a camel, drinking a Coors, and he's playing the trumpet with his friends. It was incredible. Like, every time I'd go to the member bars with him, it was like going to the club or going to it was like seeing a party every night. And I was always inspired to make music at a young age. My dad was always like, hey, if you can make it, make it. We don't care if it sounds good. Just make it, and we'll make it sound good later. So when I was about 2002, I was about 16, a friend of mine had his studio in his I'm talking this big. The door couldn't be that big, and the whole closet was this big, and I couldn't put my whole leg out like that. But he had a computer in there, and he knew how to do something that made it loop all the time.
Made all the beats and all that. I have a friend that did that too.
Yeah, and then in 2003, a friend of mine in my high school I was just doing little raps, and he's like, hey, you ever record one of these? And I'm like, no. He's like, yo, come to my house. We're going to do one of these. And it just started like that. About a year after that, I got the chance to open a show when I was 18 years old. And when I was 19 years old, I got to open for this a group in I opened for them here in Massachusetts, but it was a group called Hieroglyphics. They're a big rap group from the 90s and 2000s. They were doing an East Coast tour and were putting on little... Static Selecta's a radio DJ, and he had some talent that he would sub out to bigger acts for opening acts.
That's
and they told me, hey, you can have 2 songs. I was like, you got it, man.
That's
I will
awesome.
not screw up for you.
That is great. All right, Matthew McGee, Freight Train. We
Hey.
talked about him off air. Love
My
Freight
man,
Train.
Freight Train, thank
and
you.
you're the first person to tell me that his cookouts are unbelievable.
They're phenomenal. If
Phenomenal.
you ever get an invite to a Freight Train cookout, you do not squander that
Yeah, I don't
opportunity.
think I'm gonna. I think Freight Train. I think I'm gonna have to come to your next one. But he wants to know first, great stuff with Frank, Bones, and Flax.
Thank you. Yes,
Has
sir.
moving into music been a
No.
difficult leap from the wrestling world?
I was excited for this question because no, I've been. I basically was introduced to them on a professional level
Yep.
at the same time in
Right.
about 2004 and 5. I started taking my music very seriously around that point, getting into my own, like, I needed to book studio time often. I needed to be able to book, my engineers had to come with me. I needed to start learning all that stuff quick. I had a very fortunate tutelage under a name. This person's name is Eric Seymour. He goes by the name LB.
Okay.
And he's a phenomenal musician in Manchester. And he was one of the first ones that pulled me over and he was like, hey, yeah, that song you showed me the other day wasn't that good.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, all right. And he goes, but bro, think of this. With a little work, you can make it listenable. I was like, if this is a compliment, you're not good at it. And I was like, well, Eric,
Either that or he's brutally honest, right?
he's
One or
brutally
the other.
honest. No,
Yeah.
he is the most honest man I've ever met in my life. And 10% of the time, I wish you lied to me, Eric. But no, he was the first person that came up to me and showed me that the way to do things.
Right,
Hey, you can't just rap for like 10 minutes straight, bro. You need a point and you need to be doing something with it. And homie, by the way, you only rap for 40 seconds. I was like, 40 seconds? He goes, that's how long this goes. That's called a verse. And I'm like, oh, a verse, okay. And he goes, and then, dude, you know how you make a hook? You cut it in half and you just loop it. And I'm like, whoa, wait, what do you mean? He goes,
Yeah.
you just take, I was down at the mall and my name is Paul. I'm like, oh, that's bad. He goes, it doesn't matter because you're going to add something after it that's
Right.
even worse. And then you're just going to flip them all together. And I'm like, and he goes, and that's how you make hooks, dude. The worst part of the songs are always the hits.
Right.
That doesn't sound right at all. He goes, it'll make sense once we start doing it. He meant the worst part of the song because you got to hear yourself
Right.
doing it so
Right.
many times. By the time you're like, I don't even want this thing to be a hit anymore.
Right.
But that's the kind of process that it became. I took something like that and I tried, because I looked at it both in wrestling and music the same exact way.
Right.
There is a building process and they go very much the same way, people. The creation process is like this. If wrestling has, I guess there's 5 traditional, the build, I don't remember all the processes, guys. Sorry, yo.
all right.
The heat, to come up, the shine, all that. I don't remember any of that anymore, but my talent does, and DCMC will do it well. Anyway, it's all a process. There's pieces. There's only so many pieces you need.
Right.
You overcomplicate it, it's a bad match. Well, it's the same thing with music, Leo. There's not much to a song. You get an intro, you get a hook.
Yeah.
You get a verse. Now you get to play a ping pong game of verse, hook, verse, hook. It's all in how long
right.
you want it. Do you want a really good song that gets a lot of people hooked in? Keep it a little shorter.
Right.
Keep it, but make
3
sure that-
minutes, 10
there you
seconds,
go. Give
something
them a
like
4-minute
that.
classic.
Right.
Same with wrestling. If you want to keep them engaged and interesting, give them a 7-minute classic. No reason to be out there flippy dipping in leg drop city, or there's a flipping concerto with a 450 splash and a elbow drop to the cranium. None of that, homie.
Right.
Like Jim Cornette said it good, dude. Sunset flip, pin, get me out of there. Like
I'm a Cornette guy.
a lot of us are.
I'm
Hey,
a Cornette guy.
I do this with Jim. I do this with Uncle Jim because there's times where I'm like, brother, I don't need a coronary. I can't listen to you. And then there's I love my blood pressure up.
Yeah.
But no, Uncle Jim's a wildcat, man. We've been letting him get away with so much for years.
All right, so the next question, I got to say this first. It comes from Chris Sanders, who was killing it with his best
Yes, sir.
best
Coach
in the
C.
business. Coach C.
Big ups to Coach C.
You guys got to check out Best in Business.
Best for the business.
Best for the business.
Yes.
And check it out, man. Chris is doing a killer job.
We're going to be setting up something with him
All right.
soon.
Well, Chris says, walk us through the process of making a song from start to finish.
course, you got
Maybe
it.
the Dirt City Murdy
Like,
Crew theme,
yup.
for example.
So, like, It's over there somewhere. I got a copy of it. Yeah, the Dirt City single. Basically, I wanted a theme that was gonna get people to really be able to not only just stand up and cheer for us, but I wanted to give them something to do when they're in the crowd.
Yeah.
So when you hear the riff of a guitar coming in, you're like, ooh, what the hell is that in there? And then that's getting nice. And then you hear the drop of that drum.
Yeah.
And then that's that point where they can, like, all right. And then they can start kind of finding where they clap right. They do that. And then, of course, it's Dirt City. City of Dream, Dirt City. And that's that chant. That gets them to, everything in Dirt City ain't always what it seems. And then you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They'll do that. They'll do that. They'll do that. And it's all in here. It was all in here to begin with. It was all a process where I know, okay, I got to have this point build up to this thing so that when we walk out at this point, it's going to crash in here. And now we're talking. And now I'm hyping. Now we're walking around the ring. And I'm right there. And I'm right behind Mike. And I'm right behind Ricky. And Jason's right there. And there goes Jamie. And I'm building them all up. And I'm saying, hey, and everyone doing this. And that's all in here when I'm making that theme. And I tell my producer, Mr. Goodbars, Nashua local, I tell him, I want something that makes it like we just showed up in a limo. Could have been right on the other side of that apron. And we came out that limo ready for business. And he gave me that rock and roll sound, him and his engineering team he has. Nice. They can put together, it's like we have our own little collective with Frank and Flax and them now where we call ourselves the Toy Box Troupe because we work out of Toy Box, Mr. Goodbars' Toy Box. Yeah. And we have a little collective. We can make different, if I need a guitarist to come in, he finds me a guitarist, bring it in. If I need this kind of drum track, let's lane that out. And that's all in here. The idea of a wrestling match was in that song when I made it. So when I crafted the words, watch out below, clear the way and watch your back. That was the idea of like, here we come. We're walking right out the curtain. So you better watch out below. Like if you sitting down, you better stand up because we about to come through and your hands are going to do this real wildly. Or your person next to you is going to do that in your face. And then by the time I start talking about them in the song, I can see people while I'm walking around, they're singing that song right there and they're just saying the words that I wrote. And
they're a popular group. They really are. I think popular group of wrestlers.
I couldn't be more blessed, Leo, because about just over 2 years ago is when we started working together. I had the opportunity to come into RWA, and big ups to T Phoenix, and his whole entire team is just aces. His whole entire production team goes to town.
Nice.
I got the opportunity from Mutual Wrestlers. Frank Bones put me onto them, and he said, come through one of these shows. I got to meet T. T kind of liked my vibe. He was like, hey, I think the ring days are behind you, but I think you got something, kid. I think you gotta, so we find you the right talent, talk to me in a month or two. I gave him the idea, working with Frank. It didn't work out because Frank's first injury. And then Mike and Jason behind the scenes came up to me. They're like, hey, we heard you've been looking for something to do. We like what you got. We like what you can offer. Let's try it out a little. We tried like 2 matches and it was aces and gold. It was pretty much from that point on, I was repping Fall River, baby.
Now, unfortunately, Mike Montero has retired from the sport, and a lot of people say no one ever really. He's a phenomenal
There's nothing unfortunate of Mike Montero leaving the wrestling industry because what we get from Mike Montero, I don't even want to call it leaving. I want to say gracefully allowing himself the time deserved to take care of himself.
Right.
If we want to call it leaving, then we call it leaving. But I think it's not an unfortunate because we have this man's entire legacy to look back on.
Oh, no doubt.
His entire wrestling catalog.
17 years.
17 great years in New England wrestling. Right. Not only great years on the scene, but being somebody that others can look up to and say, wow, that was a great wrestler. Or, ooh, I hope I can aspire to be like a Mike Montero. There's plenty of them on the scene right now. A great champion like AJP.
Oh, no
openly
doubt.
looking up to someone like Mike Montero the other day to me.
Such a young kid, too. Such a young kid. Grew up in the ring.
Incredible amounts of knowledge in that mind of his. You got to think, if he's only... AJ, happy birthday. It was not even a month ago or something, but You
22? Yeah, 22,
There we go.
I think, yeah.
Think of that. He got his whole daddy's years
Oh,
of
yeah,
that in there
absolutely,
too.
yeah.
So really, he's got like 40 years of wrestling knowledge in his head.
Yeah. And
then
he's really
a
talented.
slew of others, partly trained by Brickhouse Baker, a few others who I apologize if I don't remember AJP's resume and who trained him.
Right.
Yo, this is a talent who he has almost 60 years of knowledge in
I hear
wrestling
you.
in his
There's no
mind.
doubt. Right.
In that underneath that beautiful head of hair.
Yeah, no doubt. All right. We still got a few more questions to go. But Greg Jones Isaacson from the South
Yes, sir. South
Coast Sign Group.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
All right. We know Paulywood is making crazy moves in the music wrestling world. Are there any specific goals you're looking to accomplish over, say, the next 5 years? P.S. I think the Sign Crew needs a theme song.
I think the Sign Crew needs a song.
He's
we can get that
great
going.
guy, man.
See, Greg's incredible.
He is.
So here's the thing with me and Greg. I told him, I go, we were at the show, and we might not have been the nicest guys at the time, DCMC and I. We might have been more jeered than cheered at the time. But I go up to Greg, I say, you got all these signs. Maybe you can make a Paulywood sign. Thinking he's going to make it look like the Hollywood sign.
Right.
No, Greg comes up with a sign that says, and I got a jacket where it's white, but it's got all this blood splatter all over it.
Like
Says
a Cornette
Paulywood
jacket.
sponsored by Maxi. Or Tampax. That was what it was. Paulywood sponsored by Tampax.
Oh,
that was my Paulywood sign.
That's
and I asked
awesome.
for it. So good looking out, Greg.
When he came in, he gave me a big head of me, just my head, and I said, I gave it to my girlfriend. I said, you got to bring this to work.
Oh, boy.
You know? All right. Alex Volpe.
Yes, sir.
Volpe or Volpe?
Volpe.
Oh, Volpe. All right.
Volpe.
Sorry, Alex. What are some of your favorite memories from Carmine's in Gloucester?
Some of my favorite memories from Carmine's was one of the first times I went there was I was talking, this is in 2022, I was talking to Freakin' Flax, and he goes, hey, we're still doing shows, we're in Gloucester. I'm like, get out of here, no kidding, huh? Well, good for you guys. I'm gonna check you out. And a couple days later, he actually was going. He's like, hey, we're gonna go. It was him and Jeff Ducharme, Mr. Psycho.
Okay.
And he goes, Johnny Psycho. He goes, hey, you can ride with us. And I'm like, man, at the time, I had a nice little spot on the west side. I just kind of wanted to roll up a little medicine, we call it.
Oh, yeah.
And I was
like
just
that
gonna
stuff, too.
Yeah, we just lamp.
Yeah.
But I wanted to just lamp. I wanted to be on the front porch. It was like a June day or whatever it was. And I go, man, I don't know about that. And he goes, well, I'm going to go pick Jeff up. And Jeff only lived 5 minutes. I'd walk 3 minutes and he's right there. And I seen his car come back and I was like, yo, homie, come here. I think I got some gear downstairs still. And I had like a vest and some tights or whatever. I hadn't wrestled in 4 or 5 years at that point. I just grabbed an old gym bag, stuff that I'd washed at least once a month, just out of like, if I ever get that again.
Well, at least you washed it. Some people don't.
I know, and that's a problem unto its own. If y'all in the industry and y'all can't throw your gear in the wash once after a show, that's on y'all, and I don't need to tell y'all that. But yeah, I remember going to Carmine's with them and thinking, man, why are we in the middle of a junkyard? And he's like, no, it's over there. It's like, it's kind of like we used to be down at the mill.
Right.
I'm like, okay. And they were in like a little factory, little builded thing. But man, they were set up. And I was like, yo, shit, that's the ring. And yo, there's like an upstairs here. This is cool. Like, all right. And I remember seeing just some of my oldest friends I'd known I'd seen Alex I'd known for 10 years at that point. I'd known Johnny Psycho for almost 15 years at that point. And a couple other, Buck DeRoss was there. Chateau Bannigan was there. And I'm just blown away like, this is the coolest thing, man. But there's new talent that I'd never met before. Some guys that like, just brand new.
Right.
And it was the idea like, all right, we're going to start it again. We're going to run it back. Let's try this. And they just gave me a couple ideas like, hey, you could do this, or you can manage him, or I'm like, man, I don't want to tell y'all how to do this, but I'm going to be the president of this joint. What do y'all think of that? And I remember Buck DeRoss being like, here we go. President Paulywood. Oh, boy. And I'm like, no, it's got a nice ring to it, right? And then the next week, we did the show, and Murderer's Row was there. It was Joey Warner and
Delilah?
No, Delilah wasn't
they're
in it
the
yet.
Void. They're the
that's
Void
with the
now.
Void.
They're the
This
Void
is
now.
like a precursor. This
Okay.
is like a tryout for the
Okay.
Void. No, it was Draven Filth,
Yep.
Joey Warner, and a couple other cats. We were all bad guys, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna be like the J.J. Dillon of the Bad Boys here.
Nice.
And I remember trying that out, but I had all the pull because I was the president, baby. And then as the time at Carmine was coming to an end, we had what we called the Farewell to Carmines. Was a
Right.
2-day event that we threw. We ended up just doing a go-away show pretty much. Like, hey, if you've ever wrestled for WAW, if you've never wrestled for
Right.
WAW, you just want to come here and have a fun time, we got 48 hours of matches we're going to do. We threw like a little, there must have been 6 of us that went down there that for that Saturday.
Yep.
We did an event, a little, probably 4 matches, and I did a match with Frank Bones that night.
Nice.
And I did, I call this match the ladder submission match. It's a match I created when I was in my 20s and I didn't know any better.
All right.
What you do is you have a ladder match, but instead of climbing it and grabbing a title that's significant to winning, no, you utilize the ladder to make the opponent submit.
Right.
Stupidest idea in the world. I thought it was $1 million when I was 20. And then a couple years ago when I was 35, I thought it was just as good. So Frank was a nice guy. He's like, hey, I'll work one of those matches with you. It sounds just fun enough to do. I'm like, thanks, Frank.
Frank's
That would be
a good
cool.
dude.
Frank's an amazing man, bro. I've
really
been
is.
blessed to know him. But yeah, we do this little ladder submission match, and somehow I win the damn match.
Nice.
Now I'm the damn champion though. Like, oh, this is gonna be a time of my life. So I'm having a great time. A bunch of us stayed overnight at Carmine's.
Yeah.
We were gonna camp out in the ring, damn it.
Right.
Me, Alex Volpe, Jeff Dushon, Mr. Psycho, a bunch of us were in there. We made a jungle juice vat.
Right.
And we just said, this is your cup. If you're gonna scoop it, just make sure your hands
Hands are
clean.
clean.
This
Yeah,
is
yeah.
it. And here we go. And me and Alex sat on the side, just on apron for about, homie, I'd say 2 hours, Leo, just
Wow.
reminiscing of great, just WAW memories. Oh, remember that time I did that thing? Remember the time you did this? Remember that time Shady came off of the pillar over there? Remember the time Walter flattened the guy's head with the damn the pan of the thing? Remember when Kevin Chaos did the flipping power bomb? Remember when? And it was just like a 2-hour onslaught of just some of our close homies just passing. Like passing the cup around to give
Right.
the story, and we started doing. I remember drawing this like little swivel on one of the cups, and I'm like, here, you get the cup, you tell the story, and we just sat on that apron for a couple hours till we passed out on that damn apron.
Nice.
And when we woke up on that apron the next morning to Johnny Psycho, like, hey, I jotted down about well, it's about 4 pages. I'll get to some more later because he wanted to have a match
Yeah.
with Alex, and Alex was like, only. I am not going to read that right now. But no, it was one of those times where, and a bunch of people showed up
Right.
later that night. We had another day of just people passing the stories. Hey, man, I want to work this dude later. I want to work him later.
Right.
Hey, man, I haven't wrestled in years. I want to work him, though. And we just turned it into an event. And that sticks out to me way more than like the little arguments we got over. Like,
Right.
well, I want to do this, man. Your gimmick sucks. Or this thing ain't getting over, man. Or his gimmick ain't getting over, man. Like, none of that mattered at the end of the day because we all got to be there. And we all got to embrace the memories that we
Right.
were going to put in. Not only the memories that we were about to make, but the
Yep.
memories we had.
Nice.
And that will always stick out. That's a great memory from Carmine's.
Awesome. Time is up, but I got it for Dan Elwell.
Hey, Buck DeRoss.
Barry Ace.
Barry Ace, a good
Peace,
man.
we're out. Hi, guys. I hope you're enjoying the show. Listen, I could use a little help to grow my YouTube channel. So if you could please like, share, and subscribe, that's most importantly, subscribe. Send me a direct message, and I'll give you a shout out here on the show. My YouTube channel is real simple. It's just my name, Leo Connors. Thanks in advance. Peace.